Welcome to She Wins, Women, Wealth, Wisdom, and Legacy, the podcast where financial empowerment meets fearless living. If you're a woman who's built a life with purpose and is ready to align your wealth with what matters most, you're in the right place. Your host, Carol Eddy, is a certified financial planner, financial educator, and passionate advocate for helping women live fearlessly and leave a legacy. Whether they are preparing for retirement, managing an inheritance, or simply looking for financial guidance, Carol has helped her clients feel confident in their financial plan for over 25 years. Each week, she'll share insights and practical strategies to help you create financial freedom, navigate smart money choices, master your money mindset, and make winning decisions now and for the next chapter of your life. No intimidation, no overwhelm, no jargon, just wisdom, clarity, and the confidence to manage your wealth, embrace your power, and craft a future you love. Welcome to the show. As a reminder, the content shared on this podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It does not constitute personalized financial advice. For guidance tailored to your specific situation, you can schedule an appointment with Carol. This is an independent podcast not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corporation. All securities offered through Money Concepts Capital Corporation member, FINRA SIPC.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Carol Eddy, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Meggin Rutherford. Meggin is an award-winning and recognized leader in changing the way that families experience law in their lives. She has dedicated her career to serving families in the areas that are most likely to need legal help: divorce, family law, estate planning, elder law, and probate. Meggin is dedicated to helping families find out-of-the-court ways to resolve their family law issues. She is active in changing the legislation and judicial system to promote solutions-focused divorce resolutions by testifying to the Colorado Legislature and the state Supreme Court committees about collaborative law and divorce options. She has served as president and vice president of the Colorado Collaborative Divorce Professionals, among other organizations, to promote and expand solutions-focused resolution. In 2020, she was nominated by her peers for the Colorado Bar Association's Award of Merit, the highest distinction in the organization. But her proudest accolade is being recognized as a nominee for the 2020 Golden Rotary Ethics in Business Award. So with that, welcome, Meggin.
Thank you, Carol.
So let's get started and jump right in. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into estate planning and family law?
Yes. So I went to law school naturally. I went to University of Colorado Law School. And for estate planning, when you are in law school, there are certain classes that you're required to take your first year. And then after that, it's up to you as to what kind of tracks that you want to take for law school. Well, one of the classes offered, it was estate planning, wills and trusts and probate. And I thought, well, every good lawyer, it's not something I really want to do, but every good lawyer should know about wills and trusts and estate planning. So I went and took the class, and it was one of my favorite professors who taught the class. And I found that I really actually loved it fundamentally for what it was, because I'm very much a planner. If I could plan my life from now until the end, I would be very happy with that. So I really enjoyed the ability to take people's concerns and questions and worries about all the different things that might happen in their life and try and help them find a way that they can draft their documents and draft their plans so that their family really knows and understands what they want. And really what it comes down to with family law and in estate planning and probate is I want to help people in the places that they have the most fear and worry. Because I find that I really actually enjoy meeting people in the hard times of their life and providing comfort and providing reassurance and reducing their stress by saying, it's okay, I hear you, I see how hard this is, let me sit with you through these difficult things, and there's a way out. It's going to be okay, we're going to figure this out. And so both estate planning and probate and elder law and guardianships, conservatorships, and family law allows me to really help people in the places that touch them the closest, that mean the most to them personally, so that they can move forward and they know that they're in good hands and they're okay.
That's great. Yeah, and I think it's unusual that an estate attorney does also family law and divorce. Usually it's just estate or that side. So I think it's a very interesting combination. And I think it's really cool. That's how you, like you said, you take care of people when they're really facing challenging times and just kind of walk them through it.
Exactly.
So tell us most common issues you help clients with in your practice?
Like you said in your introduction, my focus really is keeping families out of court. That's really what we want to do. And that includes in by planning well before for estate planning purposes or with elder law purposes. With family law, it's helping them reach resolutions outside without the judge having to be in control. Because what's really important for families I've found is that we are able to reflect each family's goals and each family's own needs, because every family is different in every way. What your goals, how you want to get there, what do you need to do to get there, who do you want to protect, what all of those different aspects. And so that's really what I look at is what are my clients' goals and how can I help them get there. So the most common issues with estate planning and elder law and probate and trusts, I should say, and trust administration as well, is first helping the clients identify what their goals are. And if they have some really unusual goals, coming up with some fun, creative ways to help reach those unusual goals. I love doing creative, unusual things. But most common, what I help people with is either hopefully they're thinking ahead for their estate planning and they say, oh, I know I've needed to do this for a while, but I'm kind of worried about talking about it. If they don't have their estate planning in place, helping with guardianships and conservatorships. So when somebody is no longer competent, they need somebody to make those decisions for them. Or to after somebody has passed away, helping the family move through the trust administration or the probate or whatever system that they have with their estate planning documents to try and reduce conflict between siblings and also to help just get everything done because it's grief on top of administration, which
Absolutely.
is usually administration and grief are neither of those are anybody's favorite things to do. So trying to help figure all those things out together.
Well, and I also think I don't know if it's unique. For me, it would be that the estate attorney is there when something happens. Like a lot of times the paperwork's in place, but I see clients often that they have the estate plan, but they don't necessarily think of calling their estate attorney unless they have questions about the documents as someone who could walk through and go here, because it's the same, like you just said, the grieving is huge. And so part of my job as on the financial side is doing the same thing of helping them navigate, like, you know what, there's very little you have to do until after the funeral. Here's the things you have to do. Don't worry about anything else. We have time. And just hearing that.
Exactly. And actually, even just yesterday, I believe it was, we got a call from somebody I did his mother's estate plan 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even longer ago. And I did her estate planning a while ago, and she just passed away last week. And so he called and said, what do I need to know? What do I need to do? And so I was able to just jump on the phone with him real quick and ask some really pretty, straightforward, simple questions there at the beginning, and just give some quick guidance that fortunately they don't need to file anything and they don't need to do any backup because she did a really good job following the plan that we had in place. And so that's exactly it, right? Calling the estate attorney saying, what do I need to know right here at the beginning? We can give some reassurance. And then while you're in that really, really stressed place, and then, then you can come back a little bit later after all that's done and we can talk about the longer stuff.
Very cool. One of the topics we wanted to cover is families that don't have children. So what do you think common the misconceptions are about families without children and doing estate planning?
One of them, and I think families so if we can think of as a single person or a couple who don't have adult children or even minor children, really, if they're a younger couple. The first one to take into consideration, I should say, most of them know that they probably should do some estate planning because there's not necessarily a default person of like, oh, it will just go to my kids and that's fine, right? My kids will figure it out. It's no problem. So most people in that situation know like, oh, I should probably do something to make sure I've got people in place. One of a common misconception is, and this is actually across the board, not just for people who don't have children, is that they need a trust. And that's not necessarily the case. There are attorneys out there who are happy to tell you that everybody needs a trust, even when that's not the case. Because of course, necessarily a trust is a lot more expensive. There's a lot more work that goes into it. We do a lot more on the back end for your documents. You also have a lot more administration during your lifetime for a trust. But, some unscrupulous attorneys, I'm sad to say there are some out there, will be happy to give you a trust. And so many people come in saying, I think I need one, because they hear all the talking heads on the TV and the podcasts and the everywhere else, saying you have to have a trust. Well, really, one of the many ways that, Carol and I are in Colorado, that Colorado is amazing, is that we have really advanced legal system, and our judicial and legal systems are really proactive. And so the probate system in Colorado is actually very straightforward. And there are a lot of states that have adopted the Uniform Probate Act that do have quite straightforward probate administrations. However, there are states like New York, California, Florida, I understand Virginia is one of those as well. So a lot of states that have very big populations and very big elderly populations that have a very complicated and terrible probate system that you want to avoid as much as you can. So those, and guess where all of those talking heads are based? In New York and California. And so they're the ones saying you have to get a trust because where they live, that is true. In Colorado, we don't necessarily need a trust. So I think it's important to talk with your attorney, to sit down and meet and really go through, do I actually need a trust? Is it worth the pain in the butt administration that it may or may not be? Or is it beneficial? Because having a trust really can be beneficial, depending on the family and depending on the family circumstances.
Right.
So you definitely want to take that into consideration of, do you actually need a trust or not? A second misconception is that people who don't have children or aren't planning to have children may think, well, then there's nobody out there to handle this for me, and so I'm just going to let somebody else figure it out when I die. Which I can understand that as well. And this is specifically more elderly people without adult children or without children, because their friends and their siblings and their, all of their family or their closest siblings and family are aging, right? Are the same age as they are. And they're like, well, if I'm old and can't take care of my stuff, how do I know my older brother is going to be able to do it for me? Like, that doesn't make any sense, which is true. And unfortunately, there are some people who come in and they say, I don't have nieces or nephews. I was an only child. I didn't have children. All my friends are the same age. I don't know. And so we really want to talk through, there are really good professional fiduciaries. So fiduciary is a legal word that is somebody who is responsible for handling your business for you and who's responsible to you to do what is in your best interests. So when they are, for example, a financial power of attorney or a medical power of attorney is a fiduciary. And actually, thanks to some relatively recent, I know I'm getting old and it's a little bit older, but some relatively recent law changes, financial planners like Carol are fiduciaries, that she's responsible and required to take the best interests of her clients into consideration as well, though not in this sense. So there are professional fiduciaries, though, that can stand in and can be your financial power of attorney or your trustee or whoever to help you when you get older, if there isn't somebody who can help you do that. And so there are a lot of different options that are in place that are available if you don't have family. And if you do, great. Like if you have a niece or a nephew, that's actually really common. I very commonly see, oh, my lovely, wonderful niece, she's there and she's always helping me with so many things. And I say, what a blessing. How wonderful for you. Let's make it where she doesn't have to fight. Because let's say you don't have a medical power of attorney and you end up in the hospital, you don't necessarily have a next of kin. And so the hospital is going to say, well, maybe we won't let this person who you do want to make your medical decisions, maybe they won't let them do that. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we have all of that protected. And if they don't have family that they want to leave it to, or they don't have anything specific, what a blessing they can be to their community. We can set out, we can have donations to nonprofits, we can have ongoing trusts for charitable trusts. There are so many different things that we can do to make sure that they can use all the money and assets they've worked so hard to build up, that they can leave a legacy, right? Even if they don't have kids, they can leave a legacy to help the things in the community that are most important to them.
So in Colorado, if someone dies and has money and they never delegated where that goes and they don't have family, where does it go?
Well, here's I've always enjoyed this visual. The legal term is the fountain of intestacy. I always have to do that hand signal with the fountain of intestacy. Because when you draw it out physically, it really does look like a fountain, right? Like an old Italian kind of fountain. So what happens is, let's say you pass away and you don't have so if you have a spouse, everything goes to your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, but you have children, it goes down to your children. If you don't have a spouse and don't have children, then that's when we start going up in our fountain. So we go down to get the water and then we go back up. So then we go and then we'll go out. So up to your generation. And then we go out to your siblings. Mm-hmm. So it would be equally distributed among your siblings, but not their children. If you don't have siblings, Or possibly if one of your siblings has died and left children, then their portion may go to your then nieces and nephews. This is how you get that whole like, oh, out of nowhere, my second cousin died and I got money, right? And then, however, if there are no siblings and no nieces and nephews, then we go up and even, or so then we go, sorry, to parents first. So if you have parents still alive, they get it. If not them, then siblings, nieces, nephews. If not parents, siblings, nieces, nephews, it goes up another generation to your grandparents. And then it goes out to your great uncles and aunts. And then it goes down to your cousins from there.
Wow. I didn't
So,
know it was
and
that
then it just
expensive.
keeps, usually that finds somebody at those levels, but that's why it goes up and out and then up and out. So like a fountain. So that's what would happen. We would find those relatives of yours. Each county also has somebody who is designated in that county who's an attorney, who's the default person. So if somebody dies, right, the coroner knows we've got the death certificate, we have all these things. They can bring it up to the county and say, hey, this person's passed away. We have no known relatives. We don't have any contacts, but they have all of these things that need to be handled. A probate can be opened. They can assign an attorney for the estate. That is an attorney who the county has a relationship, who is their default person. So there is an attorney who can be brought on board to administer the estate as personal representative. There is a whole system with that. But needless to say, it is very difficult and time consuming, and I have had to do a few of those, and you want to avoid them if you can.
Yeah. That sounds very time consuming. Trying to find people, I think, would be the hardest.
Yes,
Yeah. And make sure you
absolutely.
made an attempt that shows that you tried to find everybody that's possibly there.
Yep.
So tell me a story about a client that came to you and things that went wrong before they came to you.
I have one of my very dearest, favoriteest clients ever, and she's seriously the entire office, my entire law firm, our section is if we see that in the calendar that she's coming in, everybody gets so excited. They're like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna be here! I'm just so happy she's coming." So we'll just call her Granny because that's what she calls herself. So Granny came to me a few years ago in really, really bad emergency dire terrified straits, and she was referred by a mutual friend of ours, somebody who I knew, who I had done their estate planning, and they kind of knew me through some other community things as well. And what had happened to Granny is, unfortunately, her husband, who was a Vietnam veteran, had a extremely rare form of dementia called rapid onset dementia. That he was, I believe, a CPA or somewhere in the financing, accounting kind of things in his professional life, and they had retired and they had moved here from Wyoming to be nearer to their grandchildren and to Denver. And suddenly, out of nowhere, he became very erratic and he started going out and he started wandering, and he literally spent over $100,000 in 4 months. I think it was even more than that. And in less than 4 months on garage sales. He would go to the bank, he would pull all this money out, and he would go find a garage sale, and he'd say, I'll buy this whole garage sale for $5,000. And
Oh
like
my
in
gosh.
cash, right? And just hand them the cash. And then he would go get a storage unit, and he was convinced that this was all just, it was all gold, and he was going to get so wealthy out of this. And, all of this junk was worth all of these millions of dollars. And poor Granny she was trying everything. She was talking to the bankers. She was talking to their financial providers. She was talking to everybody. And she said, how can I stop this? I need to stop this. He's not okay. Like, how can we stop this? And they didn't have a power of attorney. She didn't have a financial, and nobody else had a financial power of attorney for him. So everybody said, sorry, we can't do anything. Even though they saw what he was doing, they didn't tell her there are other things you can do. No professionals, and this is what baffles me. Not a single banker, not a single financial professional. Nobody told her to go talk to a lawyer. And
Wow.
so during all of this, he basically drained their retirement accounts. It was well over 100,000 by the time we stopped everything. He just drained everything that they had, and she was frantic because they didn't have much. And so finally this neighbor friend of theirs said, you need to go talk to Meggin. And that person called us and said, please get her in as soon as possible, this is an emergency. And we said okay, and we talked to her and we heard what was going on, and we were like, yes, this is absolutely a huge emergency, let's go. And so we were able to then, it took us a week or two to get the doctor's letters, but we got them much faster than normal. We were able to file an emergency conservatorship and an emergency guardianship. Then eventually we were able to get those made permanent. But even after we had the emergency conservatorship, it stopped him being able to get access to the money But then our client didn't have any money because they just froze everything and they wouldn't release it under an emergency conservatorship. And so
Hmm.
she didn't have any access to funds to pay for her daily living. And it took several months until we could get all the required forms from the doctors that we needed. It was the doctors that were really difficult, as always, to get the letters that we need. And so eventually, though, we were able to get that in place. And I'll just do a couple of definitions. So a conservatorship is a person who is appointed by the court to manage the money for somebody who is not competent to manage their own money, either through disease, aging, brain issues, or if they're a minor. So you can have a conservator for a minor child, for example. A guardian, and that would be the equivalent of that, is a financial power of attorney
Hmm.
on the other side. A guardian is basically somebody who is like a medical power of attorney. So
Hmm.
that person makes decisions for your medical care, your where you are living, all of those types of your day-to-day livelihood things is what a guardian is doing. And so we were able to get in, we were able to get her guardianship and conservatorship. We were able to get him into a memory loss unit. We had to ask for a mental health hold. We had to ask to have the sheriff and the ambulance come to the house to get him. It was really, really sad. And all of that, I mean, she could have avoided losing hundreds of thousands of dollars if she just had a financial power of attorney that she could go into the bank and take all the money out, put it somewhere safe, and handle it then.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But now I'm glad to say, so we were able to get that guardianship and conservatorship in place. He has since passed away in the last several months. But because then she then had access to everything. We already had it formatted in. We had it in the accounts it needed to be. We had it with financial professionals who knew what they were doing, right? We had everything where it needed to be so that when he did pass away, she just continued to administer everything, and the money was still there. It just went all over to her like it would have and was supposed to in the first place. So we were able to then set it up. So now that he has passed away, it's been much smoother and easier.
Yeah, it definitely where somebody needs help. So tell me about a case where things went right and you were able to help someone really change
Yeah.
by working with you.
Well, this one is a really sad situation, but it absolutely has gone right. So a client was referred to us by one of her best friends, and she unfortunately had very severe alcoholism as a relatively younger woman. So she was only in her 40s, but her alcoholism was so bad that she was already at a point of alcohol-induced dementia. She was at end-stage liver failure, even just being in her early to mid 40s at that time, I believe. And so while she was sober, and I should say she was divorced and had a child who was 9 or 10 years old at the time, a son. And on top of that, we knew she was about to inherit a significant amount from an aunt who didn't have children. So all of these things were in place. She was in end-stage disease, had a child to protect, was about to inherit a lot of money. And so while she was sober, her friend was able to convince her that she really, and this friend was a financial professional, she really needed a trust to make sure her child was taken care of in the long term, and that, that everything was taken care of. So while she was sober, we went in, we got a trust set up for her. We got all the powers of attorney set up. We got all of that where her sister was the person who was going to administer everything for her and for her child if something happened to her. And then sadly, sure enough, a couple of years later, I was notified, or maybe even less than 2 years, not that long later, I was notified that she had died of her alcoholism, still only in her 40s, and that there were significant assets. And so we needed to start doing a trust administration. Because she had come to us, because we had set up the trust, and her uncle or her aunt and her father had recently passed away. So there was all this money that was still in process of being transferred over into for her child's benefit. And so because we had the trust set up, because I already had a relationship with the sister who served as the trustee, she and we had already been introduced. It was kind of like it's not if, it's when. So everybody was already on deck and ready to go, so that when she did pass away, everybody was there. We could jump into action. We could make sure that there was still money there for the child. He, I believe now, is 16 because I just answered questions from this. Now this is an ongoing trust administration until he's in his 30s. And I just got an email from the trustee asking if it was okay for the trust to give him money to buy a car for his when he was 16. So and I think he was only 11 or 12 when she passed away. So that is something that was done right. When they caught her in a moment of health-ish and sobriety, we were able to get those documents together so that when something did happen, it has been very smooth to transition over. There were some other more complicating factors, but we got it all figured out. We have that trust administration now until to protect her son and help provide for his needs and his education.
That's great. So what do you like best about your job?
People may think that I'm strange for this, but that's okay because the world needs this. Is I actually really like meeting people in the time of their grief, in the time of their need, right? Of where they are at a place where they are scared, the things that are most important to them, their family, their loved ones, their assets, everything they've worked so hard for is, even if it's not actually, right? They perceive that that it's at risk and that it's scary. And I actually really enjoy meeting people when they're in that really hard place because I know that I have the knowledge and skills to be able to make it better and to be able to make them feel less scared and to be able to actually help fix it and figure out what's going to happen and do what we need to do. And it goes way beyond the legal knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Any lawyer can have the legal knowledge of these are the probate laws, this is the guardianship laws, right? This is the estate planning, and here's the Uniform Trusts Act, and blah, blah, blah. Like, lawyers can read that, they can read it, they can understand the words. What really separates apart probate, elder law, estate planning, family law is people with compassion
Mhm.
in recognizing that if somebody's come because their loved one has recently passed away, they're reeling, right? And even thinking about death. I mean, who wants to do that? That's not fun to contemplate your own mortality. And that brings up a lot of big feelings too. So even though you're like, okay, I know I need to do this. I need to do these documents and I'm doing this because I'll feel better. My family will feel better. Still, the number of tears that we have while going through and talking about the details. Like we get down into the nitty gritty of if this happens and if that happens and who does this and who does that. Most of the time, people end up in tears, understandably so. Like that's
Yeah.
a dark thing to think about. And I'm glad that they feel safe with me, that they can experience those emotions and that we can honor those emotions and those goals to help move forward and make a plan so that they do feel more comfortable and safe and assured, right? They can move forward with more knowledge and confidence. And that's what I want to help give my clients. And when I talk to people and at the end of the conversation, they come in and they're so worried and upset. And seriously, the biggest compliment I can get is at the end of our conversation, if they say, I feel so much better. I was so worried coming into this, and thank you. I just feel so much better. That is like the pinnacle of what I can do professionally to help people. And that's really what I love to do.
Yeah, and I have a very similar, and I think people don't always realize that how many emotions are tied to money on the financial side, and just walking them through, and then the family stuff comes up. Maybe there's an addiction, maybe there's who knows what, but they have to express that to me because we need, just if we're going to do planning, and then I involve a state attorney, that's super important to know. And we have options on how to structure things, so it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly right. And especially with those hard things to talk about in your family, you really need to trust your professionals because substance abuse is real, addiction is real. It's a medical issue. It comes up a lot in my line of work, needless to say.
Yeah.
And there's so much shame around it that people don't want to admit. But at the same time, we can do estate plans where we set up a trust or a contingent trust, one that comes up only after you pass away, so that if anybody has substance abuse issues, for example, if they've got a child or grandchild or loved one, we can actually set it up where there's a trust for that person where they don't get access to the cash, but maybe the trust pays for them to have an apartment. So, and heat and water. So, whatever is going on, at least they have a safe place to be and they're not on the street, but they
Right.
don't get the cash to fuel their addiction, but at least they have a safe place to be with utilities. So there are a lot of different things that we can do and options that we can provide. And it's so important that people are honest with with all their
Mhm.
professionals they're working with. Their financial professional, because you can help, right? I can help. We can make sure that we protect that loved one, while still making sure that the assets are protected as well, and we're not fueling any more issues. Another really common one actually is generation skipping trust,
Mm.
where the trust is for the grandchildren, where they say, oh, my kids are all right, or oh, I don't really like my kids, but I love my granddaughter. Right. So we have an independent trustee to come in who administers a trust for the benefit of a grandchild instead. Those are all things that we can absolutely set up to make sure that you are caring for the people that you love the most.
Yeah, that's super important. So is there anything we didn't talk about that you'd like our listeners to know?
Really, I'd say the biggest thing is it's just starting the estate planning process. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about. A lot of us want to avoid even thinking about it in the first place and just, I'll put it off till later. But I think this may help financially, if not emotionally. We can do an estate plan between usually $3,000 to $5,000 or $6,000, depending on how complex the estate plan is for two people. So between, $3,500 and $6,000, we can do an estate plan most of the time. And then you're good, and then you have all your powers of attorney, all the documents, everything's handled. However, if you don't have those and there is an emergency and your family needs to get a guardian and conservator, it is probably going to cost somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 to get that in place. And then they have the cost of ongoing administration. They have to file reports with the court every year. They have all the money and expense and time to do all of that reporting. It is so much more expensive. Or let's say it's a probate mess, right? And we have people fighting over stuff. That can easily be $30,000 to $50,000 or more. So it is so much cheaper to just do your estate planning now, invest in a good plan now. It's financially better. It's emotionally better, because I don't know about you, but that little oh, you still haven't done that. Oh, you still haven't done that. You can get that to go away, and you can say, yes, I have. And instead of your niece coming to you and be like, so have you gotten that done yet? Oh, we talked about it last month. Have you gotten that done yet? Then you can say, yes, I've done it, right? You've gotten it done. You can feel proud of yourself, and you can know that you've protected your loved ones and you've actually saved yourself money, as weird as that sounds, in the long run. And I think that's the last thing I want people to really understand, is that it is an investment, but an investment just like you would do with Carol, right? You put your money in a place that is worth it, that will give you a return on your money. And I very firmly believe, after doing this for 15 years and seeing over and over and over again the number of families who have, it's been so much more expensive to fix the problem than to do it right the first time, that it is a well worthwhile investment.
And I think people don't recognize how complex, even if there aren't big arguments, if stuff isn't in place, it still costs a lot more.
It does.
Unless it's a very small state, then maybe not. But in a lot of cases, if you didn't set it up ahead of time, there's a lot of questions and processes you have to go through to get it all done.
That's exactly right.
Like you said,
could have been
so
avoided.
much easier to do it ahead of time than to try to scramble and pay more and do it later. So yeah.
Exactly.
So with that, how can our listeners contact you?
I think probably the best way is the website for the law firm that I'm at. So setterroche.com, SETTERROCHE.com. Or you can call our lovely front desk. And if you want to talk more about estate planning, I'd be happy to do that. The office number is 303-255-3588.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your expertise and sharing all the knowledge that you have with our listeners, and we just really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you for joining us today for the She Wins Women, Wealth, Wisdom, and Legacy podcast. If today's episode sparked a shift in how you think about your money, your future, or your legacy, imagine what's possible when we walk this journey together. And if you found value in today's conversation, please share this episode with a woman you care about. Together we rise and we shine. If this inspired you to take charge of your financial future, don't stop there. Download your free guide, A Woman's Guide to Triumph in Every Decade of Her Wealth, by clicking the link on the screen or in the show notes. It's designed to give you powerful tools and clarity at every stage of your wealth journey. And be sure to follow or subscribe now so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay wise, stay empowered, and remember, it's time to rise, lead, and thrive with your wealth, your wisdom, and your legacy. As a reminder, the content shared on this podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It does not constitute personalized financial advice. For guidance tailored to your specific situation, you can schedule an appointment with Carol. This is an independent podcast not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corporation. All securities offered through Money Concepts Capital Corporation member, FINRA SIPC.